Now we move on. I'm going to ask to pick up the baton and to look more analytically perhaps at the demographic base for many of the issues that present us. My colleague Brian Hughes to take over. Brian, I first met in my first few days over in Ireland when he was running as director of our consultancy centre. And we actually talked about the city-state, Ireland as a city-state. Brian has done an enormous amount of work on demographics over the past few years. And initially, I think his findings were seen as something of a heresy in government arenas. But now, I think a lot of your predictions, the labour force and migration protection. Brian.
Lord Mayor, clients of the Futures Academy, ladies and gentlemen, like Conor, I'm going to try and focus on what has happened in the last year and see how that might, as it were, affect us going forward. If we take, first of all, a map of Ireland, what we see really in it is a figure of 8. One part of the 8 around the Belfast area, one part of the 8 around the Dublin area, and the hourglass somewhere between Drogheda and Dundalk. It was John Ratcliffe who drew my attention to the fact that when we look at Ireland, we have to look at scale size. After all, this island, the entire island, has about 3/4 of the population of our nearest urban county, Lancashire. And it's in that context that we must always keep a handle on scale. On the other hand, looking forward to the next 20, 30 or 50 years, a world population of 6.7 billion now will be 9 or 10 billion by mid-century. And just as world population growth has very much influenced Irish population growth, particularly in the unprecedented period since the 1996 census, I believe that despite the current setbacks, however they may pan out, we will see world population particularly influencing what's happening here on this island, because particularly of the fact that in a temperate zone where you can play golf all the year round, we are very underpopulated. And our density is more redolent of a Scandinavian country with large tundra areas rather than somewhere where all of the island can be inhabited. This was the 2006 census, and since then that line has crept above the 4.4 million people level. I believe that it's going to come downwards now slightly before taking off again, just in the same way as the population of the state fell back between 1986 and 1991. However, our natural growth will mean that even though we will suffer perhaps excessive outward migration for the next year or two, we will come back to this very steep level of growth that we have been enjoying because of world demography. Prior to April 2008, in the preceding 4 years, the population of the country, of the Republic, had increased by almost 100,000 a year, and indeed was over 80,000 in the year to April 2008. Our natural growth is such that it's going to counteract outmigration, albeit with this hiatus reappearing up here for a short period of time. So, if John emphasised to me scale and scale size, the issue of where the future population will be located in this state is, I believe, very much tied up with documents such as a green paper on local government, which was issued. And the reason for that is because never since the foundation of this state 80 years ago or more has any government espoused or supported cities. We've had ministers for islands and so on, rural areas and so on, but we have never had a minister for cities. And signs beyond, our cities have suffered. They continue to lose population share, and this is very sad really, because as we move from being a country that needs to work on exports and exports boxes, we're now exporting knowledge. And indeed, ESRI tell us that 45% of our exports are cerebral. That again suggests that services, the services sector, is going to dominate, and that again would suggest spatially that cities are the future. And indeed, the Californian expert from UCLA, I'll think of his name in a second, it's Alan Scott. Alan Scott suggests that by 2050, about 70% of the world's population will live in cities. We can see here that looking